Camera's rolling.
Sound speed?
Call Slate.
This is the Sights and Sounds Podcast, a show all about learning and growing in your filmmaking journey.
Hosted by Courtney Hawley and Jonathan Everett. Season 1. Market. Action.
You learn very quickly that creativity is bolstered by constraints. When you have things you have to work within.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that.
When you have constraints, you have to work within those borders, but you still want to win the competition for one thing,
Right.
But you want to tell a good story. And so you're forced to go, man, I don't want to make more sacrifices than I have to. I want to have a dinosaur in this film, which, I mean, speaking of constraints,
from
we did.
experience
Yeah,
here, Jonathan.
speaking from experience. Gosh,
That was
couple,
epic, though.
couple years ago at this point, because good gracious, pandemic time flies. But we did that for one of my short films, the one where I actually got to win the 54 Film Festival, like best director, that kind of thing. We wanted to shoot a dinosaur film. Our friend Bennett and I were like, we're going to do a dinosaur film this year, and we're like, well, crap, how are we going to put a dinosaur in a movie? At a 5-minute movie or 4-minute movie at that. And we thought, well, instead of going, oh no, I can't do this without somebody who does CGI or building a model or having some kind of effects on camera, we kept thinking about, all right, what free assets can we get to do visual effect in post later? And how can we frame our shots to where it feels at least a little real? Obviously, it did not feel like Jurassic Park. Well, now
It was good.
it wasn't
though.
as good as Jurassic Park. It felt a little like Jurassic Park, I would hope, in terms of tone
Yeah.
and
Oh,
cinematography.
absolutely.
But that's what we put 2 shots of a dinosaur in a film that we shot in 54 hours.
And not to mention, you had absolutely zero budget for that film, because I need to preface that the 54 and the 48-hour film festivals, you cannot pay your actors.
Yep.
You cannot pay people to come in and work on this. Like, that is one of the parameters of those festivals, is that you cannot have a premeditated budget.
Yeah, or premeditated anything, technically.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you get your cast and your crew on standby, and you get your parameters for the film. Here's what you're going to do. The only thing in that particular competition we could premeditate was that you could know ahead of time you wanted to do a dinosaur, but then you have to get the rest of the pieces of the puzzle.
Main moral of the story there is that virtually there was zero budget. They worked with what they had and made what they wanted to anyway. It's not like having zero budget or zero experience in CGI and all of that.
Yeah.
It didn't stop you from making what you wanted to make.
And here's the other piece of that, is that this was my, I don't know, 9th or 10th, maybe 11th film, right? This was also the result of what we've been talking about along the way of practice. The reason that we could, story-wise at least, convincingly pull off a dinosaur short film in 54 hours is because I had made several films before then, and Bennett has made probably even more than me, or at least worked on more than me. And we had a crew and cast that we were familiar with working with before, who were all talented. We'd all practice this stuff, and we used the pieces that we had built before, being able to take all those elements and put them together, telling a good, interesting story, and then putting the unknown in there, the part that we had to learn on the fly, made it all come together.
That's a really good point I think we should make too in this, is that you're not alone when it comes to being in this creative space. So you don't have a super high-tech camera. Okay, yeah, you could use your phone, or reach out to your fellow creative who does have that camera and say, hey, let's collaborate. Let's do a project. I really want to do this thing. Let's put our minds together and do this. You don't have to be doing it all alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a commonwealth of resources at that point, being able to pool with your community. being able to build your film career in general is about working with other people and
Yes.
not just relying on you having all the skill and all the resources yourself.
Yes.
The amount to which you have to do that's going to vary. You know, if you're an actor, obviously you're going to need other people to make your films. You don't have to. You know, you could learn some camera principles. You can learn principles of lighting. I mean, you should for your self-tapes at the very least, but you can learn to do those things and you can make a solo short film on your own.
You've done it plenty of times.
Yeah, I've done it. We're going to do it some more this year or
yeah, we are
in the near future. But there's almost nothing, especially today, that you can't do. But the main thing to do now is practice, build that network, build those resources, use what you have, and don't spend money until you have to spend money, until you've got the skills to merit it. You know, I literally cannot do this thing without the money or the budget.
Right.
And that point probably isn't where you think it is.
This is very much when you're first starting out.
Mm-hmm.
If you have gotten a few gigs, or even you have a day job that you've been putting away money and you really want to buy this one camera, like if it's in your means, by all means, go get that expensive piece of equipment that you've been, wanting for so long.
Yeah,
we're saying that this should not be your scapegoat to not be creating right now. The mindset that you absolutely have to have these things that cost money in order to be successful in your field. That's not the mindset you should have. You can do it. We're just saying that it shouldn't put you in debt to be a filmmaker.
Don't let it hold you back, either in your creative expression here and now, or in your financial responsibilities to yourself and your family, if you have one, going forward. Don't let it be something that ties you down in the here and now. You can work around just about any seeming equipment or financial barrier that you think you have.
Right.
That's a perfect segue for a little update here on our feature, right? Because we're in pre-production, and we mentioned organization is a huge thing here. So, where is the film? He asks, knowing he's the one to provide the update here.
Well, I mean, we sit down for some meetings and stuff, but right now it's kind of in Jonathan's hands because he is our.
We're still writing,
yes,
right? And so I'm keeping Courtney in the loop on what I'm writing, and I think that's actually where a good piece of the puzzle here to address in pre-production, because you don't have to be alone in your pre-production phase, even the writing phase. Right. So, as of since our last episode, I've gotten a couple more pages done. But I've been thinking a lot about the elements we'll need to address in pre-production to figure out what we're going to actually do about production, right? So again, I'm withholding the title, the working title, at least, of this film, but it is going to involve locations. And one thing that we're going to really need to address is the elephant in the room of the main location. This film is centered around a lake. It is the centerpiece here. So
it is a character almost in and of itself.
Right. So when you're writing, you're going to need to go in and figure out, how do I account for the elements of the environment in pre-production and write those into the script. So thinking about that led me to a little bit of some nonlinear writing here. I had written, I think I mentioned last time, we were about 15 to 20 pages in. I've only written another 3 to 4 since then.
Okay.
Which, when you're doing a ton of other things, I mean, you got something done. Congrats. That's what I tell myself.
You're not working
anyway.
On a YouTube video or a podcast, whatever.
But my thing here is I didn't write forward. I wrote backward. And what I mean is, when you're writing a script, you generally feel like you need to write one scene and then the next scene sequentially, and then the next scene sequentially. And sometimes that just doesn't work. And I found that I had gotten stuck at that 15-ish page mark where I was. There was a scene, I know the purpose of the scene, which is a huge piece of writing that we'll probably touch on.